23 minutes to 7. Lloydie, you've only got 23 minutes to put Mark Evans, the Chief Football Operations Manager, under the grill. This is going to be interesting. Lloydie, specifically, Mark, wanted to come in tonight so he go head-to-head with you. So welcome to you first and foremost.
No, I don't think he'd be as fearful of me as he is of Campbell Brown. But
well, we didn't even raise that.
Kissed and made up.
That's good. So, Lloydie, why don't you have the new ball?
Well, Mark, your comments during the week were splashed all over the Monday night programs about Essendon and the possibility of losing points. When will the AFL sit together? Who will be involved in that in regards to that becoming a possibility?
Gil has said repeatedly, and Andrew said prior to that we need the investigation to be completed fully, and that's the most important thing. And Gil has again said that if that's early August, that would be a good thing.
He said today that it was going to be August. That he can see forward. There's a point in time at which it's going to be completed in August. Why can he be so confident? Because it's almost too nice that it finishes in August. Too whatever the right word is.
Convenient.
Convenient. Thank you, Lloydie. That's why you're in. It's too convenient that it's August. So therefore, if there is a point situation, it just flows nicely.
No, I think it's got to do with conducting those interviews thoroughly, and that can conclude fairly soon. So that would be up to ASADA to then hand its report off to from there. And if that's going to be August, that's going to be August.
Do you understand why Bomber Thompson would have been left till today? Have you got an opinion?
No, I'm not close to it at all. It's really a question for Gil or someone who's been across it. But no, so I don't have any news on it.
Well, the one thing that you are across, and that is Gold Post technology. Geez, if I get the Gold Coast stuffed up again, Lloydie, you can sack me on the spot. The mail is that you may be experimenting this weekend with some technology. Is there any official announcement on that?
Yeah, we are, Jared. We've got 3 games being trialled at the MCG this week, so we've had some equipment sent out from the UK, and the managing director of Hawkeye is coming out to run us through that. It won't be a live trial. It'll be done in the broadcast truck. But it's not the graphical situation that you'll see at the tennis. That is a Hawkeye system. But this is another piece of their technology that allows the person reviewing goal scores, or any scores rather, that they can manipulate the vision themselves. Okay. So all of the vision comes up on the one screen. You can exit some and just focus on one or two. And basically that vision runs in sync. And you can just pause one and see exactly where it is from another angle. So the whole idea is, can we make the decision quicker and more accurate?
Will that be shown? Will that be shown at all on the actual during the footy coverage? Or could you show it down the track once? Feed it into the coverage somewhere?
It won't be live, but the broadcasters are working with us on this, and I'm sure they'll take vision and maybe drop it into to halftime and show what we're doing.
There was a controversial one up on the Gold Coast on the weekend. For all intents and purposes, seemed to me as if it hit the post. I had a coffee with Paul Roos, and it came up by chance, and he was convinced it didn't hit the post, which made it difficult because I had to lend him my glasses. I was that convinced it hit the post. So you must be sick and tired of a lot of these things because it's not as easy to get a comprehensive answer.
If we're going to overturn the goal umpire's decision, who's right there, then we need to be reasonably conclusive that it's one thing or another has happened. So when you've got a couple of bits of vision, the person reviewing that, one looks like it might have, one looks like it might not have, we regard that as inconclusive and go with the goal umpire's call. We have made some changes to now take the boundary umpire out of that consultation, which has really reduced the amount of time before we actually go to the goal review in the first place. If the boundary umpire's got something to add, he needs to get off his post and get there before the goal umpire signals.
Speaking of goal umpires, they're under enormous scrutiny at the present time. There were 2 standout goal umpiring decisions to me that went to positioning. One was going to be did it cross the line, and the goal umpire was actually behind the touch, so it couldn't look down the line. The similar one had the goal umpire looking down the line. Did they review that and get coached on positioning, or do you get involved in that?
I've certainly got nothing to do with it. I wouldn't know a thing about goal umpiring, but what the coaches tell me is the goal umpires get their best position when they're looking across a line by actually straddling the line. But we don't want them straddling the line if the ball has a chance to hit them. So we've sort of changed that if the ball is particularly rolling towards them, that they'll take a position as close as they can to the post rather than crossing the line and into the field of play.
Mark, changing topics. Today it was announced that the All-Australian team or International Rules team will be a fully Indigenous team. Are you expecting any fallout from some of the other players who can't represent their country at the end of this season?
Yeah, first of all, it came up as a request from the senior Indigenous players to Andrew and Gil in Alice Springs earlier this year. So the concept was tested through them a few times to make sure that they really were going to buy into it and not pull out. Over the last few series, we've found it quite difficult to keep the really high quality players in the team. They all say they're interested, and the longer you go through the season, the more and more that pull out. So this is a way of re-sparking some interest in the concept, and if we get good commitment from those players, I think it'll be a pretty exciting team and hopefully a good series.
You were with Hawthorn though, and say, for example, Cyril Rioli, who's missed 6 weeks, Adam Goods has just hurt his knee. Do you have a fear that some of the big Indigenous players' names that we've got in the comp might do the same and pull out as time goes on?
Yeah, but that's not an Indigenous versus non-Indigenous problem. That happens anyway, and our team have to work with clubs. David Butterfant will oversee the fitness. Rodney Eade is supporting Michael O'Loughlin in the coaching with a few other people. Ty Cannelli's got a clearance from his mum to be able to coach in our structure. So we try and wrap as much professional expertise as we can around the players, and we'll still work with the fitness coaches from clubs to manage game time. So it should work well.
Do you think it signals the end of it, though? If you're going with an Indigenous side to re-spark it, to me, it was partly AFL's problem, the reason the players didn't support it last time. I thought the programming was really poor going up to the Gold Coast. I mean, you get 3,000 people up there. It doesn't augur well for the Melbourne game, but sounds to me as if this could well be the end.
Well, the programming's got very little to do with the players who put their hand up. The team is selected not according to where you're playing the games. So, but I take your point that.
But the view about its viability always comes down to the crowd. There's always issues about selection, and maybe last year was the one year that was a bit of a struggle. But the death knell came because of the programming.
Well, no one's saying that it's a death knell. We're actually saying this is an interesting concept that's worthwhile running, and if the players are good enough to support it, let's give it a go.
For a guy to openly confess that he had taken a substance against the rules under the WADA code, he should have been given an infraction straight away, stood down, and an opportunity for him to get out and give his defence should have been made. There may well be a defence that we're not aware of, but if he's cleared and there's not a legitimate defence, then that will reduce, in the eyes of international sport, the AFL to a laughing stock.
Strong words. We played them last night. That was Peter Bell speaking on 6PR. Read Jobe Watson. He, of course, was a former president of the Players Association. It's clearly been difficult for the AFL that Jobe went public. Mark, you, I think, used those words. It's not helpful. Can you explain why?
My words were that it's not helpful that we end up having a massive debate that goes for a week off such a small piece of information. So it's more helpful that we wait for the determination of the investigation.
Are you fearful that this may go on and on, the Jobe Watson treatment?
I'm fearful that I'll say something wrong. I'd rather say let's just get this process over and done with and then talk about it from there.
Was there any consideration at all after his comments to have him stood down?
Again, Lloydie, if I keep answering those sorts of things, I think we'll just end up having another debate that rages for a couple of days, so I don't really want to do that.
How did you feel, Matthew Lloyd, spoke about the Monday night programs, of which I'm on one, taking your comments on AFL.com, the interview with Damien Barrett? Did you feel as if you were, I guess, in some ways misrepresented?
I'd need to be careful of saying that. I felt that I hadn't said much at all or hadn't really said anything different to what had been said for a long period of time, and suddenly that became a day or two of news. So that's a good lesson, isn't it?
Mark, I want to ask you, it is a good lesson, about Buddy Franklin. Obviously, you're at Hawthorn for a long period of time with Alistair Clarkson. What's your thoughts on NRL players come out and coaches come out and say that they'll be with another club in the following year? Do you think it's a good thing that doesn't happen in the AFL, or do you think we need to go past that and a player should be able to announce that he's moving on and he gets to continue with his current team?
A player can do what he likes. I tend to think that our code hangs on to this idea of loyalty and that you're totally committed to what you're doing with your team for now, and maybe if we're mature enough to accept that players will make a decision or an announcement at the end of the year but give their all for a team while they're playing, and I'm happy to ride the way we're riding.
But players fear, like Paul Roos came out and I think said at the time he would tell a player, well, I don't want you to play for the rest of the year. I think that's what we still fear for in the AFL.
Yeah, but a bit different if you know that guy's giving his all, you're heading towards a final series and he could play a big part, then I think most coaches want that player to play.
You don't think it'd derail Hawthorn's season by Buddy coming out now and saying, I'm moving to the GWS next year?
I think we're better off having a system where that player just reiterates that his commitment is to the team that he's with, and those determinations will be made at the end of the year.
Can I ask you about Buddy? Let's just say, for instance, he does want to go to the GWS, and I know we're talking hypotheticals. At the present time, he can go as a free agent, and Hawthorn get nothing. Is it possible for Hawthorn to match GWS's offer and then trade him?
I've been in this job for just under 3 months, I think, and I've avoided nearly every Buddy question that's been asked of me. So let me answer the question. This is not about Buddy. So any player who is a free agent can move either under the free agency rules or be traded or delist themselves and go into the draft. All of those options are available.
But if you're at the lower level of free agency, the club has got an opportunity to match the offer, and therefore you're locked in.
Well, you're locked in. A player doesn't need to accept that, and a player could then delist himself and put himself into the draft.
Which, if GWS are at the bottom, they pick him up anyway.
We weren't talking about Buddy.
No, we weren't, but the side on the bottom would pick him up.
That's a possibility.
Yeah. Priority picks, it's going to be discussed, I guess, until you make a decision. Surely now Melbourne would have lost any real chance of getting it if they had any chance before last weekend's events.
I think it is a reminder to us that if you get decisions right in your club over a period of time, you will rejuvenate. So it's about the speed of that rejuvenation, but it comes down to good coaching and good resources and good morale and good leadership amongst the players. Melbourne have still got some good young players. They've got another couple of young kids waiting in the wings. Jesse Hogan to come on next year, and a little bit more vigour on the weekend would be good for them.
How are you reading that one, Lloydie?
Sorry, Jared, I was chatting to our producer, so I missed that one. But
well, my interpretation of that is, don't think Melbourne should hold their breath on the priority pick.
Right.
What about the salary cap? Because that it seems to be getting further and further attention from clubs. I mean, at the end of the day, I know Lee Matthews is very strong of this view that the Sydney Swans are under the microscope at the present time. Brisbane lost their salary cap advantage, if you like, because they won 3 premierships. Is there not a case to be made for sides in non-football states to get an advantage? Because the players are at a disadvantage in playing in those areas from a commercial basis for starters.
Well, that is what has been proposed, and it's currently on the table with the equalisation debate and what do we do with the salary cap. But we're also looking at what do we do with lists and what do you do with the academy lists and what do you do with additional rookie lists. There's a lot of stuff to be debated as part of equalisation, so that'll take a little bit longer than we've got today.
What about fixturing and the 3 buys over the 3 weekends? And a lot of criticism about that. I'm not sure if it can be done any better, but will we ever get to the point, we probably never will, where the draw becomes more even in regards to, I'd love to see everyone play each other once before we get 2 teams playing each other twice before that point. But is anything going to change moving forward next year?
Simon Lethlean's running a project at the moment to look at the fixture and also the impact of the pre-season competition, or whether there's something that changes in the final series. The fans are telling us that they want the final series left as is.
Yes.
That's what we're hearing from fans and clubs. But we still want to take up more space in that March period.
Yeah.
So how we spread the season out, and then what you do in terms of either setting up just a normal schedule like the way we've got now, or whether you run a conference system, or whether you everyone plays each other once and then you work out what happens from there, some sort of a reset. That's been tested through the fans, and the data should be in soon. But I'm not sure we'll... Someone has proposed a wild card round of prior to the final series. I'm not sure there's support for that.
And there's a chance that we could go out to 24 rounds and not the 23 if we lessen the NAB Cup from 4 weeks down to a couple or something like that?
Yeah, the options that are under assessment are to either remain at 22 rounds and just add in another bye, retain the staggered start to the round one, which would spread it over 25 weeks or so, or you could add another round, have 23 matches, and then spread it over 26 weeks, or even 2 matches out to 27.
Tim Lane's just rung through. He wants this question asked. Samantha Lane interviewed Scott Wade, who's the CEO of Tasmanian Football, and put on the table they'd like one team down there in Tasmania. Hawthorn responded on the weekend, not overly impressed with the suggestion. I think that's a fair interpretation. Didn't hear from North Melbourne, though, so not sure where they sit on it. Did Scott do that on behalf of the AFL itself, or just AFL Tasmania, and what's your thoughts on it?
I don't know is the answer. I don't know how those things were said or why they were said. I do know that the position of Tassie having its own team has been debated for 4 or 5 or 6 years, and that's been put to the 2 clubs that are playing down there. I have seen Hawthorn's role in the community down there and what they've done as being outstanding, and I can see that North Melbourne are building that, so we'll wait and see where that goes. A
couple of calls before we let you go to Anthony. Thanks, Anthony.
Jared, I just wanted to ask about clash strips and why there seems to be no consistent policy, and why every week, I can guarantee you every week there'll be 1 or 2 games where there's an absolute clanger and a team doesn't wear its clash strip, or the AFL puts a team in, as we saw on the weekend down Geelong and Freo, they put Geelong in blue shorts and they put Freo in white shorts. Now, it's ridiculous to add white to Freo's uniform against Geelong. Again, I guarantee you 2 weeks' time I'll do it, and I'll put Melbourne in white shorts against Geelong. Don't do it.
Okay, Anthony, I think we get the picture. Who's got the portfolio for clash strips?
Well, it's a great conversation. I had this conversation with our crew earlier this week, and the policy has been for quite a period of time, if you are the home team, you wear your home strip, and then we adjust the other teams from there. Now, that policy can change, but the clubs and the club's own supporters are saying to us that they want them in the home strip.
Except if it's Collingwood playing Port Adelaide, it seems.
Well, I can't really recall the last time I saw that, but yeah.
That's right. I think it was last weekend.
That's right.
Rob, you're next.
Hi, just a solution on the relocation. What I was thinking is if a person relocated to another state, possibly 25% of their salary, if that wasn't counted to the salary cap, would that be a feasible method of allowing people to relocate and be paid for states like Queensland?
Interesting concept. That would assume that we want people to relocate out of teams from outside of Queensland to go to Queensland, so I'm not sure that one would get up.
I know we're running out of time, but how does it work with, I know we talked about Franklin, but with that marketing arrangement, with the AFL paying some of the salary, like they did with Folau and Hunt, how does that work with the AFL? How does that come in?
Can I just divert you back to Andrew's comments earlier in this year?
Don't ever worry, we'll run out of time, Lloydie. You know the answer to that. Can a Canadian get in the All-Australian side?
Possibly, yes.
Well, I guess if an Irishman can, a Canadian can. Sorry, Lloydie.
No, it's all right.
You can ask Mark afterwards. But there's the news. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for coming in.